You are listening to Productivity Straight Talk with your host, Amber De La Garza. Amber is a sought-after productivity coach, trainer, speaker, and writer who gives entrepreneurs the straight talk on personal productivity. No BS, fluff, or overused jargon. Just actionable strategies to get results and succeed in business. And here's your host, Amber De La Garza, the Productivity Specialist.
Welcome, and thank you for listening to Productivity Straight Talk. Today is episode 100. My blooper reel from nearly 7 years in business. If you are an entrepreneur who wants actionable solutions to maximize profits, reduce stress, and make time for what matters most, then you're in the right place, and I'm so glad you've joined me. My goal today is for you to get an earful of my business bloopers throughout the year so that you can get a good laugh as well as some inspiration and takeaways to help you recover from your own inevitable business bloopers. I'm looking forward but hesitant about this episode because I am going to be divulging a lot of bloopers. In fact, as I was just reading this outline, I was kind of laughing hysterically. And to be honest, when my assistant Crystal and I were coming up with this episode, we were laughing. I thought we were both going to fall off our chairs. When I was talking about, giving her some ideas for bloopers, I was actually having a hard time coming up with some. And boy, was she quick to say, oh, I remember some. And what about this? And what about that? And I quickly realized that she has been with me throughout nearly this entire journey. She's going on 6 years. And they were my bloopers and mistakes, and I kind of swept a lot of them under the rug and kept moving forward. And for her, she was clearly able to bring some bloopers up that I hadn't really thought of that are hilarious. So you guys are in for a treat today. Today, you will discover some big and small mistakes I've made throughout my entrepreneurial journey, why you might need to worry about me stalking you, how I'm kind of a train wreck, what you absolutely must embrace to succeed, why bloopers aren't such a bad thing after all, and so much more. So let's dive right in and get straight to it. So, some exciting news. I made it to 100 episodes. That means week in and week out, 100 episodes. When I embarked on this podcasting journey, I don't think I actually even visualized what 100 episodes would be like. And I've got to tell you, I am so grateful for becoming a podcaster. I absolutely love serving my audience this way. I love creating content this way. I love the community. I love the people that I've gotten to meet because of podcasting. I could not be any more grateful. But 100 episodes, that is just crazy. And so, of course, like I said in the intro, we're going to be doing a little bit different of an episode. And I love to bring it home with some hard-hitting tips and strategies and takeaways. And I am certain you will get plenty of them as I'm sharing my bloopers and mistakes and mishaps over my 7-year journey. Now, I haven't had any of those Three Stooges type bloopers where I'm tripping up the stairs in front of a large audience or falling off the stage in front of an audience or slipping on a banana peel, walking to the podium. No, but I have had my fair share of bloopers in business. The odd thing is that when Crystal and I were putting this episode together, I was really struggling. And yet once I remembered these bloopers very clearly, once we were kind of brainstorming, I remember that when some of these things happened, I felt like though my world was crashing down. There was times where I was crying hysterically. There was times that I was embarrassed. There was times where I was thinking, what the hell? And in those moments, looking in my rearview mirror, they were just little speed bumps and they're even laughable. So Thank you for listening today. I think you're going to get some good laughs, but essentially the reason why I wanted to do this episode is so that you don't think that every other business but you is a breeze. And like maybe you think I don't make mistakes because my podcast is edited or my Instagram feed looks pretty cool. Whatever that is or whatever story, I think that we really need to hear that we are all having bloopers on a regular basis. And those are the things that are creating who we are as people and humans and business owners. So let's dive in as I pull back the curtains and share some fun stuff. So when I first started my business, I did things a bit differently and made a bunch of bloopers. The first one, I didn't value my expertise. I will never ever forget the first time somebody asked me how much I would charge. I actually remember physically wanting to throw up and having like a pit in my stomach and being out in the parking lot. And I was getting ready to tell them that I would charge them $35 an hour to organize their office. Well, as you know, my business has evolved and I no longer go to clients' offices to organize them, and I charge hundreds of dollars per hour, not 35. Clients are willing to pay what your current expertise and services are worth, so don't undervalue your worth. Now, I could have never charged hundreds of dollars starting out in my business, and that's not what I am an advocate for. I think you absolutely need to charge in alignment with your value that you give your clients, that your expertise, what the market will bear. But when I was getting sick over $35, I need to be clear. I wish I knew what I knew now. I know that I could have provided far more than $35 worth of value. I know that my expertise and background also would have let me provide more than $35 worth of value. And yet, because I was early on my entrepreneurial journey and corporate didn't really prepare me to negotiate at every turn for my rate and how much I was worth, the idea of saying $35 an hour and it take X hours to get the job done, that just kind of seemed absurd to me. But fast forward, while that seemed like a big deal at that time, 7 years later, that's not an issue in my business. And so I really just want you to hear that maybe there's something else that is making you have a pit in your stomach. Maybe it's pitching yourself or speaking in front of an audience or going for that big client. This is all a journey, and I am just so proud of the journey that I have taken, and that charging $35 an hour doesn't even remotely put a pit in my stomach anymore. All right, blooper number 2, I didn't take advantage of technology. Okay, so those of you that know, you know that I am completely virtual. In fact, even in my hometown of Las Vegas, when I have clients, I don't meet with them face to face unless it's a social gathering. But to actually coach or train my clients, it's all virtual. The only time that I'm live is if I'm doing a workshop or facilitating a retreat or something like that. Now, when I first started my business, I legit would drive all over town to my clients' offices. Now, I get that that didn't seem like it was the most efficient thing to do, but I didn't have anything to compare it to. So 7 years ago, Zoom didn't exist, and I just didn't have enough knowledge about all these business owners that were making money virtually. And then over time, I was like testing the waters with clients out of Las Vegas. And of course, that had to be virtual. And shortly thereafter, I was like, well, if I'm serving my clients out of Las Vegas at such a high level, why am I not doing that for my Las Vegas clients? Because that is obviously a much more efficient way of not having to drive all over town. Now, I get to sit in my cozy office and meet with my clients all over the world virtually without ever leaving my house. And that is a huge, huge blessing. In fact, after school, my son will sometimes walk into my office and ask me, so where in the world did you go today? And I could literally tell him all the places that I got to visit virtually from my office. And that is amazing. I don't have to deal with the stress of traffic and putting miles on my car and keeping gas filled in my tank. And heck, to tell you the truth, I don't even have to put real pants on. I am usually in yoga pants, and if I dress up, it's usually from the top up. So I love to stay close to my son's school so that I can drop him off. I can pick him up if I choose to. And when I say choose to, because I have a nanny that picks him up, but there's days like today. I didn't get my walk in this morning. I had a doctor's appointment. So I decided I was going to go walk and pick him up after school so that we could spend some quality time before I jumped back into the office. And now he's at practice while I'm here recording all my bloopers for you. So there you have it. Some behind the scenes of a day to day of Amber. Okay, so next blooper. I let negative self-talk play a number on me. Oh my gosh. Okay. So when my assistant, Crystal, started working for me back in early 2014, I believe, I actually had her attend a local association presentation. I wanted her to help with, signing potential clients up for calls and, handing out flyers and things like that. And I presented and we got into the car. And as soon as I shut the door, I was bawling my eyes out. Like literally, I sat in my car with her crying. I felt so embarrassed and ashamed. I felt like I had wasted everyone's time, including my own. And I started questioning if I was even cut out for speaking. The self-talk was just rampant. And the feedback, I actually asked for feedback. So there was feedback cards on each of the tables. Now get this. This is how negative self-talk can just play crazy ass tricks on your head. So I just went with how I felt the presentation went. And get in the car bawling. And Crystal, I say she, but Crystal is just like, she's amazing, right? So she's saying, she's like, it's not that bad. Like, okay, it's okay. Like trying to calm me down. So we looked at the actual feedback cards, which I was literally shaking. I did not want to look at the feedback cards. And I shit you not, they were all amazing feedback. In fact, I was asked to do 2 spin-off presentations from that one presentation. And I had literally temporarily lost my mind to negative mindset. And it wasn't based on any kind of facts. It was based on, I guess, the way that I felt in the moment. And then after reading the feedback cards and all the great feedback and like input, and then realizing I had just bawled my eyes out with my relatively new assistant, I was so embarrassed. I was so embarrassed. So that was one of my earlier talks. Now I literally get lit up from speaking. I love, love, love speaking. There is something magical that happens for me leading up to a presentation, at the presentation, after the presentation. I am like full of energy. And the only thing I can say is that the people that I'm serving, the audience, the connections that I'm making, the topic that I get to speak about literally lights me up. So I really, really try to remind myself that while I have maybe a vision in my head of what a presentation, was going to be. And then if it didn't turn out that way, the audience doesn't know that. And so it's really, back then, I think I was more focused on me. Unfortunately, I'm going to say that. I was more focused on me and how I felt about the presentation instead of how the attendees felt about the presentation. And you know what? I actually, this blooper did not even come up in our brainstorming session, but I have one more for you. So I belong to National Speakers Association, and we have a local chapter in Las Vegas, and one of my mentors, Mike Rayburn, was president, and he asked me to come in and present. Now, this is a huge honor. Generally, they are flying people in from all over the country that are like main stage, big time speakers. He's like, I know you have value to give to the audience and to our members, and will you do this? I have never been more nervous in my entire life than to speak in front of my peers of speakers. And again, I got in my head. So I wrote a brand new presentation. I thought, oh, this is perfect. I'm going to create a brand new keynote. I'm going to practice the hell out of it, and I'm going to give it to NSA. And so the event was in January. And the reason I remember that is because my husband was working in California over the holidays. And so my son was out of school, and we were in this like fifth wheel, I don't know, trailer park, but it's where you park your fifth wheels. And we were like a half a block from the beach. And we were in Oceanside, California. It was absolutely beautiful. Weather was amazing. So I think like December, like between Christmas and New Year's, like that 2-week period. And I was practicing this keynote over and over. And Eric was really young and small. So like I remember him being like pulled behind me, and he was like on a 3-wheel, like little bike, or I would pull him in a little wagon. And I would walk multiple times a day, and I would say my presentation out verbally to practice it and get it in my body. And this was just the way that I was utilizing to memorize the speech, which that might be the first tip on where I went wrong. And I was working really hard. In fact, the joke was that all these snowbirds, so you've got all these retired elderly people that are in their fifth wheels traveling, and they're out on their porches enjoying the weather, and they're listening to me give this presentation multiple times a day for 2 weeks. And they were literally talking to me about the presentation. Like they would stop and be like, oh, who is the presentation for? What are you talking about? When do you talk? Because I was a part of their life for 2 weeks because I was literally practicing this presentation. All right, there's a point to this story. So I go and give the presentation. Now, I am telling you, there were hours. There is no doubt I literally sabotage myself for practicing too much. Okay. So I go and I give the presentation, and I am so nervous. Now, I have not been told I'm someone that doesn't really have a personality, right? It's probably something that really now shines through when I present. But when I gave this presentation, I was so worried that I was going to miss a sentence, miss a word, miss a really clever phrase that I had come up with, or tell a story in the wrong place, or not have the right structure of intro and outro and point and story and whatever other freaking rules there were to speaking. I had them all in this one presentation, right? I bombed. I bombed miserably. Now, when I say bombed, I didn't get feedback cards this time, but I legitimately bombed. I had my notes in front of me, and I was like reading my presentation. Holy crap. There was not much personality. I was getting nervous and flustered if I misspoke a word. And this was in front of my peers, and I was given the opportunity to be on the stage. So I was done, and I held my head down, and I remember somebody saying, "What great content, such a shame. It doesn't seem like she practiced before the presentation." Like literally, the comment was specifically to, "It's a shame. It seems like she didn't practice." And the reason it seemed like I hadn't practiced is because I was a robot, because I didn't have the confidence to have confidence that I had internalized. I'm the one that created the presentation. All right. And so that was a big lesson. I mean, so big that I actually tear up my script before I present. I will never take notes or my presentation ever to any kind of talk that I have. And I also threw out a lot of the rules because the rules didn't fit me. I had gotten into speaking because when I speak from my heart, I freaking love it because I connect with the audience because, well, it lights me up and I can light a room up, to be truthfully honest, when I'm myself. And when I am stuck behind following rules and a script and all of that kind of stuff, I'm my worst. So I actually bombed in front of my peers, and it made me so much better of a speaker. And I didn't give up, and I didn't hold my head down. I ended up serving for many years on the board with, the same chapter. And I went back and I just recommitted to doing the parts of speaking that I loved and still learning and improving my craft, but truly throwing out a lot of the rules. So my question to you is, what rules do you need to throw out so that you feel like you're more yourself? Because I think that as business owners, the more often we can be ourselves, in fact, we should always be ourselves, but the more often we can truly, truly authentically have those moments where we are ourselves, it's always going to be a win. All right. So next, my bloopers did not stop at the beginning of my entrepreneurial journey, and I've made plenty of them over the years. One time, I didn't even make it to my own webinar. That's right. Now, I had scheduled and promoted a webinar only to not show up. Now, contrary to what you may be thinking, it wasn't because I failed to put it on my calendar, which you may have been holding your breath there for a second and thought, oh my gosh, she literally missed her own appointment. It was a little more complicated than that. Now, before I tell you what happened, I've got to tell you, I literally sent out emails that said why it was so important to show up live and, to get the most out of this experience that's a live experience that you don't want to miss and all that great stuff, right? Now, I have the most supportive husband. I think you guys know that if you've been long-time listener. And my supportive husband logged into the webinar so that he could see me in action and support me, but didn't want to tell me so that I wasn't nervous. And when he logged in, he mistakenly was logged in under my Gmail account, and my Gmail account was connected to the webinar platform. And so it had him as the host, but he didn't push the button as host, but it wouldn't, when I tried to log in, it wouldn't even give me the option to be host. And I had no clue what was going on. And I was trying to get on with support and couldn't get support. And I'm literally seeing the time just ticking by. I'm in complete panic. I can see all these hundreds of people in the webinar. This was going to be my biggest webinar yet. And not to mention, I had a lot writing on it. I really thought that this was going to be an opportunity to serve and build my audience, and I would get additional clients from it and all this stuff, right? And I'm watching this just disappear. And so needless to say, people started getting off, and I couldn't get a hold of support in a timely manner. And I was bawling. I had no clue what to do. It was a total nightmare. So that goes in the books as a blooper. I am so appreciative I have such a supportive husband. I did tell him once we did figure out what had happened, I did tell him what happened. But again, nobody could have foreseen that. So how did I fix that blooper? I was thinking, I need to write an email. I need to invite them back. I need to reschedule. What can I do? And I remember confiding in a friend of mine, okay, so I had my little cry. I've got to figure this out. And what's plan B? And she said, do not write an email. You need to make a video. People will resonate with that. You can talk from your heart, tell them, exactly what happened and invite them back. And so I sent an email out that said, it's my party and I'll cry if I want to, was I think the subject line, with a video inviting them to reschedule of the event, of the webinar. And that one I definitely remembered. Crystal did not need to remind me of that one. Okay. So what would be a lesson in there is, when you do have a big blooper or mistake, give yourself time to process it. Maybe you don't cry like a baby like me. Maybe you got mad, you got angry, you felt like you wanted to pull away from your business for a little while. Whatever that looked like for you, give yourself a specific amount of time to feel the feelings, and then plan B. And if you can't come up with plan B, then you need to go to your trusted resources, your friends, people that are business owners as well, maybe somebody in your family, a best friend. Go to them and ask their perspective on how to make something right. Because sometimes we are so invested and emotionally connected to what's going on that we're not really clearly thinking. All right. So here's another one. And this is a much more recent. This is maybe one of the first 20 episodes of the podcast. I sounded like a valley girl. Okay, so I would say it was about the first 20. I couldn't remember what episode it was. I was just learning how to do on-air interviews. Now, I wish that somebody had ever told me, I don't know how I had gone my entire life and not known that interviewing was a skill set, right? I thought, okay, you just ask questions, you just have a conversation. And in honesty, that is what it's like now for me because it is a skill that I have improved on. But when I first started out, it was not a natural skill. So in this particular episode, I at some point picked up the word awesome. And so when my guest would say something, I would say, awesome, awesome, awesome. That's awesome. Oh my gosh, like a total Valley girl, like awesome. Anyways, so I had no clue I was actually saying it. It was one of those crutch words. And at some point early on, I picked the crutch word up and I said it over and over and over again. Okay. Now, the episode made it through to my editor, which he is still with me and he is amazing. He's always trying to make me sound amazing. And then it went to my assistant and she's also like double checking everything, making sure everything sounds good. And neither of them said anything. Now, I know that it was early on in my episodes because I used to listen to my episodes myself before they would air. So you would hear, I would do the interview. So obviously I heard it the first time. My audio editor would edit. My assistant would listen and make her comments. And then I would listen again all before it went on air. Okay. By the time it got to me and I heard this, I was humiliated. I was like, I could not believe it. I'm like, how do I sound like an intelligent woman having a conversation saying awesome every 2 seconds? And my assistant, trying not to offend me, sent me a comment which offered some suggestions for like cinnamons. Okay, that's going to be another blooper. There's some words I can't say, and that's one of them. So she was offering me some alternatives for the word awesome that would work really well in its replace next time somebody tells me a really cool story as a guest. And I wish she had told me that before. It was going to go on air like within a day. So I said, oh my gosh, like you cannot send this out. Are you guys kidding me? Like this passed through both of you and neither one of you thought this was an issue that I said awesome like 30 times in an interview. So I asked my audio editor to go in and just delete them. And my assistant was trying to send me alternatives so maybe I could re-record it or something. I'm like, oh no. We are not splicing in additional words. Like I just want the words out of there. So we're going to go with more dead silence than me saying awesome every 2 sentences. In any case, since then, there's some episodes that I may have found a different crutch word that didn't make me sound such a Valley girl, but I have actually improved on my interview skills quite a bit. In fact, here's a spin-off blooper. I used to, like, if you listen to maybe like the first 10 interviews that I did, I was working off of a script, right? So I would prepare my questions and the flow, and I would prep my guests. And I'm, a very prepared person. Generally, I like to be prepared. I think my guests like to be prepared, or I thought they like to be prepared. And so I would go down my questions, and I don't even think I listened to the answers, to be honest with you. I was just worried about getting the next question out, and then the next question and the next question. And if I had 15 questions, like my only goal was to get through all 15 questions. It made for some awkward interviews. And if you're listening to them, you probably wouldn't really know that they're awkward unless you were comparing them to my conversations I have now. So just to pull back the curtain a little bit more, fast forward 100 episodes, I do not prepare for my interviews. I know in general what the conversation topic's going to be and the value that it's going to bring to the listener, for sure, okay? I've already vetted, so I do a lot of pre-work in vetting my guests. If I don't know them, I get on a 15-minute call and I'm conversating with them about possible topic, which ways it could go, getting to know their personality. So I do my homework in that way, but I am not writing questions. I realize that I am a much better interviewer when I'm just in the moment and I sit in the moment having a conversation and I ask the questions that come up in my mind because I'm naturally curious. And I think, well, what do I want to know next? And what else is there to talk about based on what we just talked about? Or if I was a listener driving in the car or jogging down the street, like what questions would I have? And that shift from what it was before has changed everything. And now I don't need crutch words because instead of just responding to a specific question I asked, it's more conversational. So you'll have to let me know how you like my interviewing now compared to before. And I'm always looking to improve. Every interview I take away some sort of knowledge or aha, or maybe I could have gone in a different angle, always in the pursuit of improvement. All right. Awesome. So what do we have next? Let's see here. Oh, okay. Here's another podcasting mistake I've made. We would call it little blooper, and you guys probably already know about it. I have done it 3 freaking times. So we record on Zoom, and Zoom is the platform that I actually meet with all my clients, right? And when I meet with my clients, I'm just using my video camera mic. Doesn't need to be high quality. But when I am podcasting, I actually have to manually change it to my podcasting mic. Well, 3 times an interview has been fully recorded and it sounded like I was interviewing from the bathroom toilet, okay? Now, you probably, as the listener, haven't noticed completely, or maybe you noticed a little bit that my sound was off, but it made for a lot of work for Danny. So Danny's my audio editor. And blooper, right? Like I get done and I'm like, oh my gosh, I sound horrible. I'm making Danny and his team work hard. What should I scrap the interview? Because for me, this is a big blooper because for me, it is so important that the audio quality is high, like very top notch for you guys. Okay, so let's go to the next blooper. I kidnapped my son for a month. Okay. So it wasn't on purpose, of course. He was supposed to have a nice, relaxing summer playing with his friends in Vegas and chilling at home with our nanny. But right as we were going into the summer, my nanny at that time let me know that she wanted to go visit her grandchildren. And can't say no to that, right? But I wasn't expecting it. In fact, I had a full travel. I had a lot of traveling for work to do. And so I just thought, you know what? What's plan B? How can I make this a positive instead of a negative? I have these work obligations and responsibilities. My son's at home. My husband can't necessarily just take the time off while I'm gone. And so anyways, Plan B. So plan B was that I dragged Eric across the country to 2 business conferences with me. And we were gone for almost a month. We went to New York and Philadelphia and Georgia. And Georgia was to visit some family. And we did that right in the middle of the New York and Philadelphia trip. That blooper ended up being one of the best experiences and memories of probably my entire life with Eric. And in fact, my goal is to replicate something like that on purpose this summer because he truly got to travel, and he's traveled a ton, by the way, like over the years, but he's literally sitting in full day business conferences with me. He's catching an Uber in New York City. He's, walking the streets in Philadelphia and going to all the museums. It was such a great experience, but it did start out as a blooper of not fully having coverage for my son when I already had these business trips planned. Okay, so here's another blooper that came up. I was totally awkward when meeting some fans of the podcast. I don't find myself to be too awkwardly social, but for some reason, I freaking got so weirded out hearing that people were listening to the podcast, right? Like, I know that there's listeners but when you speak to someone that's been listening to the podcast for some time, this is a very one-way relationship. And I love for them to be two-way, by the way, so don't get me wrong. But I am literally looking at two computer screens. And I'm very aware that this is going out to you in your ears and along with you wherever you're at right now. You know, you could be getting ready in the morning. You could be at the gym. You could be walking. You could be doing just about anything. But to meet you in person and hear the reflection back of stories that I've shared and how maybe those have impacted you, that has been a little awkward. And so this particular story was that I was at a barbecue, right? And we were with some longtime friends. Our husbands all went to high school together. And they mentioned that they listened to my podcast. And I was like, what? Like, what? Like, they're not business owners first. And they're like, oh my gosh, it's so good. It's so valuable. Sometimes we listen to it with the kids. And these are people I hang out with maybe like once or twice a month. Like our kids are the same age, really good friends. And I couldn't believe it. And then I go to another social, it was like a Super Bowl. And another couple that we know really well said, oh my gosh, we listen to your podcast. Sometimes we do it when we're getting ready in the morning. And I just didn't even know what to say because I know how I serve my audience, you know, my clients, right? But to hear how my friends socially that we've known for 2+ decades are listening to my podcast and getting value from it, I became like a shy little girl. It was so weird. I wasn't expecting it. So maybe not so much a blooper, but I just didn't realize the impact that my podcast is having on so many people. And I was so blessed that I could know that I was impacting them in a very positive way. All right. So moving on to my next blooper. Now, I can be all kinds of a train wreck when it comes to the English language. I am not joking you. In fact, I've only spoken English my entire life. And sometimes I wonder if I was born in another country and learned a different language, would I be much better at it than I am at the English language? Now, if you're listening to this episode, I have decided and chosen to not edit. I am literally moving straight through. So you're going to hear that I probably made up words, or I cut words short, or I use the wrong word in a particular sentence. I get so excited that I just talk from my heart. In fact, before we get into what's actually on my notes here for the podcast, I got to tell you another thing that I just remembered. So Danny, like I said, is my audio editor. And when we were first working together, I remember him sending me an audio clip and a video explaining what I was getting ready to hear. And he said, Amber, I think it would be really good if you slowed down talking because you can see on the audio that you're literally skipping over parts of words. You're talking so fast that you're cutting yourself off and not completing your own words, like not articulating each word. And I thought, oh my gosh, I cannot do that I can't do that. Like, that's so bad. This is me in my head, right? Okay, absolutely. Like, you think I need to change that? I'm going to work on that. I'm going to articulate every word and I'm going to slow it down. Okay, so remember my story about over practicing the scripts? This was the same thing. So I was trying really hard and now I'm watching the audio get recorded and I'm hyper focused on articulating every word. And I sounded like horrible, okay? So I literally sound like probably a robot. There was no passion behind what I was saying. I was just getting every word out properly. So that didn't last very long, maybe like one episode. That one episode took so much of my energy because while I do want to give you a quality episode, that's the way I talk. On the stage, in person, find me at a barbecue, I just get lit up and I talk really fast. And now I know that I'm probably not even completing my own words. My guess is you may have not noticed because our brains can fill in the blanks. And unless you're looking at the audio, you don't know that I'm literally skipping over parts of a word. Well, until now that I told you, right? Okay. So back to me being horrible at the English language. I make typos galore. Okay, yes, if you follow me on my social media accounts, you're likely thinking, you still do? Because I do. Spelling is just not my thing. It's not my strength. And putting the right letters in the right order just seems to be one of those very difficult things for me. In fact, I have never, ever been a good speller. And when I was younger, I was so mortified. I would do anything and everything not to have somebody read my writing. I would never be the person that volunteered to write, on the board in front of the class. I would hide my papers. If I had to write something and I thought somebody was looking at it, I would cover it with my arm. Not because I thought they wanted to copy, but because I was so embarrassed that probably there was multiple misspellings. Because for me, the story I had was so clear. And, honestly, to this day, it's something that I still work on. But the story that I heard and that I told myself day after day after day growing up was that I was stupid because I couldn't spell. And here's the deal. I don't know what it is. I am literally practicing spelling with my son that's in the 3rd grade, right now. I know that sounds so odd, but I thought maybe something was going on in my life when I was in 2nd and 3rd and 4th grade when you're learning the foundations of spelling. I must have missed all those chapters. I don't really know what happened. But in any case, I try my hardest. And let me tell you, I can write a post. So sometimes you'll hear me write a story or, something very in real time, it just happened to me. I will reread that post multiple times, multiple times. And there will be glaring typos and I don't even see them. Legit do not see them. So funny enough, I actually have my assistant draft a lot of things. And in fact, anytime I get passionate about wanting to write something, I have her review it. When I first hired Crystal, I remember sitting in Starbucks and one of the first questions and the most important question was, how well did she write? Did she love to write? Was this a strength of hers? Because I knew that it was my number one weakness. And you know what? I just roll with it. In fact, I have done presentations inside my group coaching program or various times, okay? And I will tell them, I will literally give you a prize if you can't find a typo. I know they're going to find a typo. I do my best and I have my team review it, but sometimes I'm creating additional slides or I have an idea for something new and I want to throw it in. And I will swear that the slide is right and there is inevitably a glaring typo. So there's a blooper. I am successful in business. I am a smart girl, but I cannot spell. So I roll with it. And now everything, I'm telling you, everything goes past my assistant to review so that as it's going out in the world, other people aren't getting the wrong impression of me. Okay. So something else to do with the English language is I make up words. Yep, I still do. And I don't necessarily even realize I made them up all the time until someone points them out. So I've obviously made up, or maybe I heard it, but I say it, efficientize, I say verborize in one of my trainings. I am clear that it's a made up word. But on the other hand, I also Google some of my assistant's words that she uses in my emails because they sound made up. Okay, so Crystal is really smart. And I told her, I was like, I actually have to Google some of the words you use and make sure that that's something I would say and, whatever, right? And it usually, I would say 9 out of 10 times, if I have to Google a word she used, I'm Googling it so that I can be clear about what was intended. And then I use a word that I would normally use. I am not sending words out that I would not normally say. But she's got a great vocabulary. And she said, well, I Google the words you say too. And I was like, yeah, because you're checking to see if they're real words, not because you're trying to find out what the definition is. All right. So sometimes I make up words. Okay, and you actually heard this a little while ago, but I also mispronounce words a lot. And I still do it. This is so embarrassing, but I will even go as far as to omit parts of my guest bios because I can't say a particular word. Like it will not roll off my tongue. I keep getting stuck. I record, I re-record. There has been times where I've just deleted a complete sentence and hope they didn't notice because there would be a word in there that I could not get out smoothly. Okay, so I bet you didn't know I did that, did you? Lastly, names. Oh my goodness. Okay, so I have a really, really good friend. You actually heard her in an episode recently. Her name is Hani Wilskansky. Hani Wilskansky. Now, I'm talking, we are really good friends. We talk multiple times a day, via Voxer, and I know her name, right? But I was getting ready to record the episode intro and I was like, oh my gosh, honey, please tell me your name, record it. Let me hear it. Because I was so worried that I was totally messing up her name. And of course I get she's laughing at me hysterically. She's like, oh my gosh, are you kidding? Okay, let me just break it down for you. And that's what my ear needed to hear to ensure that I said her name correctly. And that was really, really important to me. So, all right. I bet you guys didn't know any of this stuff happened in an attempt to produce a great episode for you. Okay. In fact, I'm not sure, if you're newer to the podcast, I've shared this a couple times, but I have an entire process for creating each episode. There's a lot of love and work that goes into each episode. And one of the things that we do is I brainstorm verbally and we record it via Zoom. So I'm talking to Crystal and I'm brain dumping and I'm giving her ideas and words and sentences and topics and bullet points. And I'm just literally downloading what I want in a particular episode. She takes that and organizes it and spits it back to me in a very organized, structured bullet point outline. Well, there's times that she has foreseen that I'm going to have an issue pronouncing a word, and she literally writes it out with the way that you would say it, not the way that it's spelt, right? Like in the dictionary with the hyphens and just exactly what you would need to say it correctly, because she already knows me well enough that she's like, oh my gosh, she's going to get herself caught up on this word. And so she sets me up for success. I can't think of a better way to figure out ways to compensate for your weaknesses. So now, I'm being really open here. What is your weakness? And the reason I can be open is because you might be a rock star speller. You might be able to say every word in the English language, but I guarantee there is something that you are not good at. And so how are you compensating for that in your business? How are you ensuring that you're bringing people around you and on your team that make together a very whole and a great team, right? Like her strengths are my weaknesses, and my strengths are probably her weaknesses. All right. So we're almost at the end of my bloopers, okay? Probably not, but at least the ones I'm going to share with you today. Okay. And I've made plenty of recent bloopers, okay? So we're talking really recent bloopers. So within the last year, I tried to squeeze lemonade out of an apple. Okay. That was pretty good, right? All right. I utilize Entreport as my back office, and it runs my sales funnels and my emails and all of that. Now, Entreport is, I believe, a great program, but not a lot of people are trained in working in it. And so to find a consultant and someone to work on it has been a much bigger chore than I ever anticipated. And so the very first Entreport consultant I had hired did not have the knowledge or the skill set to complete what I requested of her. And because she was my first consultant and I had just started using Entreport earlier last year, I didn't really know what questions to ask in the interview, right? She says, I'm a certified Entreport consultant, and I say check, and I think that that's good enough. But I happen to love operations and technology and all that stuff. And when I was researching the program, I needed to know that it could do what I envisioned I wanted it to do. So in my spare time, and when I mean spare, like when I'm getting ready or whatever, I was watching videos. And I was very knowledgeable and still am about how to use Entreport. But I was clear that it wasn't the best use of my time to be setting up Entreport and creating sales funnels and all that kind of stuff. And so I was asking her to do things that I knew the program was very, very capable of doing. And she was having some difficulty, a lot of difficulty. And so I had jumped in and I had gotten on a support call with Entreport and realized, like, in that call, as I'm troubleshooting some issues, that she had totally effed up some stuff. Like, it was clear. And I'm thinking, oh my gosh, like, I have got to let her go immediately. I am on the call with support. And I get this email that comes in that says, I'm going to paraphrase, but pretty much I have completely stressed her out. She's having anxiety attacks and can no longer work for me, as in immediately. And then proceeded to send me an invoice for the time that she had spent effing up my system. That is a moment when you're like, am I a bad employer? Like, first of all, I didn't hire correctly. I didn't ask the right questions to know how qualified she was and what she was capable of doing. And then I was pushing and pushing without really looking and listening to see that I was asking her to do things that were outside of her knowledge and skill set, to the point that I get an email that's outlining how I have, like, affected her health, stressed her out, and given her anxiety. So, well, I didn't have to let her go, right? I knew that I had to let her go, and she did that for me. So her email was really direct, and I, took some personal to that. I was like, oh my gosh, like, what did I do wrong? And as you're growing your team and as you're growing your business, I think there is a ton of bloopers to be had, right? Of maybe opportunities you could lead better or interview better or ask better questions. And in that moment, I was really clear that there was a lot of room for improvement as the CEO of my business, as a leader, as an employer, and to how I took, complete responsibility of where I had gotten in that relationship with that specific independent contractor. Okay. Next is, so I actually stalked someone. Okay. Maybe I didn't stalk them, but they probably felt like I stalked them. Somewhat recently, as in like the last month, I accidentally texted and emailed someone the same message 6 times in one day. 6. I was completely mortified. Now, I didn't specifically do it. My automated system, my glitch-free system did. No, I'm just joking, not glitch-free. We had a major glitch, and it was literally cycling her through the same campaign, part of a campaign over and over and over. And so I finally got a text like, please stop the text. Please stop them. Like exclamation mark. I'm like, what is going on? And I look at her account, and she had been messaged like 6 times the same thing. And I was so embarrassed because it was a potential new client, right? It was actually a reminder for our discovery call to talk about how to work with me so that I could help her, streamline her business, be more productive, efficient, and automate. And oh my gosh, I had to explain how I had this glitch, and I have totally wasted her time, right? Like, she's getting ready to get on a call with me to talk about how I can help her save her time, and I have literally wasted her time with these 6 messages. So yeah, to say I was mortified is an understatement, but again, lesson learned, right? Like, it let me know that there was an error in our system. I went in and I fixed it, and I apologized. And, truth be told, there's been a lot of other errors as I've been in my system. fixing things and working things out, there has been times when emails misfired or more than one email went off, and I've had to send a little apology. Hey, so sorry you got that email again. Ha ha ha. And you know what it does is it takes something that's automated and makes it really personal, because now they're getting a personal email from me. So I kind of see it as a positive. Okay. So lastly, I was direct to a fault. Now, I'm going to probably give you one story, but there's probably 100 stories that could start off with I was direct to a fault. So anyone who knows me, is a client of mine, listens to my podcast, knows that I can be direct. And that's because I absolutely hate bullshit. And if I feel like it's my duty to be straightforward and get right to the point. It served me well for the most part, but sometimes it could do a little backfire. So I have a sales coach, right? This is totally a random rant, but do not hire a coach that doesn't have a coach. That means that they don't believe in the process. They're not growing and evolving. So I always have a coach, if not multiple coaches, for specific areas that I want to improve. And right now, as in like the last couple weeks, this last one happened, okay? So my new sales coach clued me into a little unknown fact. Maybe I could be a little less direct. So I had an opportunity where I wanted to talk to a client or a potential client, right? And I sent her my email, that I intended to send off. And I thought, oh, she's just going to tweak like the call to action or just, clarify how I was positioning, how I could help this potential client, right? La, la, la. And she sends the email back and just says, your email is great. May I just make a suggestion? I would start off with, hey, how are you? Hope your week has been going well. And she left the rest of the email exactly the same. Now, to know me is to know that I'm super task oriented. Now, I love people, but when I am in my groove and I'm writing emails, I have a purpose for writing the email. And so sometimes that purpose is literally just that. It's to get the job done and check the thing off the list, right? And I forget to say the niceties and, hi, Jane, hope you had a great week, great chatting with you. Now, I would say that 75% of my emails have that in it, but 100% of the time, it's the last thing I write. So what that means is I, by default, write an email and then for the purpose and say everything I need to say and edit it and all that good stuff, edit it to the best of my ability, but it's edited. And then I go back and write the hello, Jane, hope you had a great day, da, 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 da. That's just my tendencies because, again, I'm direct in my conversation, like verbally with people, but I am when I write to people as well. So it was a big eye-opener. It was actually a reminder, but a huge eye-opener. Like I knew I had those tendencies, but if that wasn't enough, I actually had another incident. It's not even in the notes because it happened like this last week. I have another independent contractor, a new person. So she's not really newer to me, but it's not the same person I was talking about earlier that helps me with Entreport. And we had a little bit of a miscommunication and I, sent her an email that was very direct and very to the point and addressed some particular things we were talking about. But a lovely email, so I thought, right? It just said, hey, I just wanted to it literally ended something like, just wanted to make sure we're on the same page for in the future. And I just wanted to let you know what I was thinking about this and why I felt the way I felt. I get an email back, and this is so recent, this is actually hard to share. So I get an email back. I'm actually got tears in my eyes right now. I get an email back, and she says, I feel really offended that you would question my integrity and what it is and why I tried to do the thing I did, right? And it had very good bullet points in her response. And in that moment that I read that email, I was so clear that I effed up again. Because my intent was not ever I wasn't going to pay you, I don't want to work with you, or questioning her motives for what happened. None of that. And to me, the email was really clear. But what the email was missing was some context, some niceties at the beginning, and it just specifically went into this one thing that was going on. And so because I know me, and we need to lean into our strengths and, compensate for our weaknesses, I immediately made a video. And I just talked to her like I'm talking to you right now. And I told her what was on my heart, what I intended. I explained to her what my style was and, being direct and, that wasn't the intent. And it is completely up to her should she want to continue to work with me. And if she doesn't, I understand. And I got a lovely email back that said, absolutely, thank you so much. She was so grateful for the video message, that it was a great opportunity for us to learn our communication styles, because I further explained what I'm explaining to you is that I had no ill intent. I'm just kind of to the point kind of girl. And so, as recent as this week, I'm still making leadership mistakes and I'm learning from those, and I'm not perfect, and I have an amazing team that supports me, but it's not always as shiny. It's not as perfect as maybe it may look from the outside. And really, that was my attempt in this episode. I know a lot of my podcasting friends that do some really special episodes for their 100th episode. And I couldn't personally think of a better way to bring to you the 100th episode than to pull back the curtains and tell you all the things that I have done wrong, funny, enlightening, lessons learned, whatever that is. It's really important for me to be authentic and for you to know that you're not walking your own unique entrepreneurial journey alone, that you truly feel that, oh my gosh, there's other people that are making these huge mistakes and yet they're still pushing forward. Every single one of us has our own unique journey, and yours will be speckled with your own bloopers of sorts. And I'm sure you have yours already. And perhaps they're faded memories like some of mine, or perhaps they're bigger and they are affecting you moving forward in your business in some way. And I do not want that for you. I want you to be able to come to a place to say, oh my gosh, everyone has them and here's mine. And this is how I can learn from them. Now, the parts in this outline that were not there that you got to hear is I just innately turned each of the bloopers into what did I learn and how did I move forward from it? And I can't tell you where that comes from, but that is how I look at it. And so as I'm literally looking at bullet points of these bloopers that we came up with, I can tell you how it has molded me into the person that I am today. I absolutely love being a business owner. I love the whole opportunity to be an entrepreneur. I love serving entrepreneurs. I barely even recognize the woman that I am today. Being an entrepreneur has changed me in the best ways. The confidence, the rapid learning that I do, the interaction with people. I would never change the last 7 years for anything. Outside of being a mom, I can't think of anything that's changed me more and has helped me be a better person than being a business owner. I want to encourage each of you to not get stuck in your bloopers, to not get stuck in what's currently going on that may feel super, super hard, because I can tell you I have had some extremely hard moments and times and weeks and months in my business, but I have always pushed through, and I am certain that you can push through too. All right. So thank you so much for joining me today and celebrating 100 episodes. I could not have done this without you, without your support, without you sharing Productivity Straight Talk, without hearing the feedback of how Productivity Straight Talk has helped you, influenced you, helped you grow your business, live a simpler life. That is literally what drives me. Okay, so we've come to that time where I need to be straight with you. No change, no change. Without taking action, nothing will change for you or your business. So based on what you heard today, based on some of these stories and my own bloopers and mistakes, what will you take away from it? If you take just one thing, I would say forgive yourself and move on, or to make these bloopers a lot smaller than they may feel to you right now. I don't want to fill in the blank for what you take away, but I hope that you do take something away from today's episode and go out there and achieve your goals and dream big. And thank you. Like literally from the bottom of my heart, thank you so much for being a loyal listener to Productivity Straight Talk. And until next time, have a productive week.